This is a question I've been pondering this past year as I started a personal long-term photography project that's intended to capture various aspects of my 30s. As the project progressed this year, my interest in video began to dwindle until I nearly stopped shooting video entirely. It's only now that I've begun to start shooting again. Recently, I went on a quick one-day trip to Seattle with my fiance, and I was contemplating whether to capture it on my photography camera, the Leica M-P 240, or my video-capable camera, the Nikon Z8. The former would allow me to add photos to my personal project, which is centered around that specific camera, and the latter would allow me to become more familiar with the Nikon Z8 and a new lens as I'm beginning to pick up some gigs here and there on the side. And God knows I need it. So naturally, as we all tend to do, I decided to bring both. The first day and the bulk of the trip, I ended up only using the Leica since I wanted to prioritize the photography project and because it's so much more enjoyable to bring around. I love how the camera integrates seamlessly into my day and my experiences. When I look back at the photos, however, I can't help but notice how mediocre they feel from a photography perspective. They're undoubtedly invaluable to me as they capture and give meaning to a random day in December of 2024, but they're simply not great photos. That in itself, however, is surprising to me, the fact that I seem to care at all about their quality. So here's our first tangent to be discussed. What creates a great photo? Now, this isn't a question I seek to answer concretely, nor do I think I should be the one trying to answer this at my current level of photography. On a hypothetical level though, I would assume that any individual's great photos are entirely aligned with their particular understanding and pursuit of photography. Currently, I would say that I'm still trying to define what my pursuit of photography is, and I try to define it through observing which photos of mine I particularly like. When ruminating further on this notion, I'm brought to believe that, contrary to my love for personal documentation, I consider that avenue to be a separate pursuit than that of photography. My idea of photography seems to be closer to the craft itself. And after reading a book called The Mind's Eye, I think I have a better idea of what I personally consider that craft to be. The craft I'm after is one that aims to distill multiple facets of what we consider life into one single frame, composed entirely through intuition and comprised of self-projection and expression. A single, utterly dense moment that's infused with humanity, however humanity is defined by that particular photographer in that particular moment. For me, this explains a few reasons why I've been so invested in street photography this year. To achieve my idea of photography, I think it requires me to be an observer. I need to be a third party in order to fully grasp, both consciously and subconsciously, the dynamics of any given moment. I would say it also requires to be in a flow state of sorts, as you process as much raw stimuli as you can, so that your intuition, which I would argue is driven by tastes developed over time, by personal experiences and reflections, can then intervene and guide you to the shot that is before you. This would be my current personal definition of photography, as in, this is the kind of photography that I wish to pursue, and the kind that seems to best fit where I am in my life and as a person. So a great photograph, whatever it may be, at the very least should align with that pursuit. Surprisingly, personal documentation doesn't seem to fit that criteria, as it doesn't allow me to be a detached observer, nor am I in a similar flow state to when I'm alone in the streets. I consciously use the word seem here though, because I'm not yet entirely sure. One could say that there are still opportunities to distill my understanding of life into frames, perhaps even enhanced by the unique perspective of being amidst the action, and that may simply suggest a lack of skill on my part. But I do find some dissonance in that I still wish to fully partake in these personal moments, and I feel like pursuing excellent photos inherently clashes with that desire. Okay, so what about video? I don't believe I can approach the question of personal documentation in the same way I did for photography. Most likely, this is because I've never approached videography or filmmaking as a craft. At its core, video has never been associated with any kind of ambition. I believe in good work, of course, whatever the industry, but again, my interests never fully aligned with becoming great at this craft. I've mentioned it a few times on this channel, but video for me has mostly been about communication with others. Whether it's a video message to an overseas friend or a form of self-therapy, it's always offered personal utility. Here's our second tangent. Here too, there is some dissonance. As of late, I've been invested in learning more about cinematography and have a lot of admiration for sound coloring, even going so far as to take a Colin Kelly course. It's also simply just been a large part of my career journey as a freelance videographer for so many years. As a result, there is a desire to produce videos that are of high quality, cohesive, and interesting, even when documenting personal moments, but I want these moments to still feel authentic and as organic as possible. The more I learn about lighting and composition, the more I fall in love with the craft, but the more it also seems to clash with what I would consider run and gun, first-person personal documentation. That was a mouthful. Okay, returning to the main question. So when I switched to the Nikon Z8 for video on the second day, and the little clips I took on the Insta360 Go 3 on the first day, I certainly felt more at home. But lugging the Nikon Z8 around and trying to be mindful of the overall quality did take me out of the moment far more than photography did. Filming on the Go 3 was a much better experience, but the clips are a little too poor in quality that I don't find them as appealing. So third tangent, this might be my justification to purchase an Osmo Pocket 3 that everyone seems to have, because obviously more gear solves everything. But at the end of it all, I'm finding that the question I should be asking isn't photo versus video for personal documentation. Rather, I should be asking, so what? For both photos and videos, documentation doesn't stop at capture. We also need to consider what to do with the clips afterwards. Are we just going to edit the photos and leave them on a hard drive? What are you going to create with the videos? A cute little video for social media that you might come across in the future? And I'm sure we've all experienced at some point complete abandonment of the files. If the raw files are abandoned, does it render the experience of capture meaningless? Questions. But it seems reasonable to say that for personal documentation, it doesn't matter whether you take photos or videos if you don't end up using the files. Maybe you come across them in the future while cleaning up your files, but I would surmise that most of our raw files need at least a bit of curation or editing, and this is especially the case for raw codec video files that you can't yet preview without an editing program. If we accept that an intentional approach is beneficial to personal documentation, perhaps we can achieve this by setting up frameworks or goals pertaining to how we intend to use the captured moments. To be honest, this is where I find myself stumbling the most. My current goal is to document my 30s, but equally so to become better at photography, writing, and thought in general. But as I mentioned before, I'm finding that it appears that these goals are somewhat at odds if I want to be fully present while documenting personal moments. More concretely, in terms of deliverables, I wish to create a series of zines and eventually a photo book, but also want to create videos for this channel while still continuing my 9-to-5 career path. I suppose the core issue I'm actually facing then is balancing everything. Having a 9-to-5 takes up quite a bit of time, and getting older also seems to be why. Having a 9-to-5 does take quite a bit of time. Getting older also seems to be introducing more time and money variables, so I find myself lusting after more streams of income. Any editing or creative pursuit on top of this then, I feel has to be very efficient and focused. My stumbling may be due to trying to forcefully align personal documentation with the idea of efficiency. Perhaps these things are fundamentally incompatible because, again, shouldn't personal documentation be free and organic? As usual, perhaps I'm just overthinking things. I think my photography project will still allow room for personal documentation, and I just need to become a better photographer. On the video side of things, I think I need to have more focus on what I intend to do with the raw clips and clearly define why I want to capture personal videos. How will I revisit it in the future, or will I revisit them at all? Anyways, thanks for joining me in this little mental meandering, and I hope that spurs some thoughts for you. Let's end this video with the same question for you. How do you approach personal documentation? Do you organize these pieces into a cohesive whole, or do you let them be, organically rediscovering them like a box of random photographs in the attic years down the line? Would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Have a wonderful day. Be healthy. This was such a pain to record. Lots of problems setting this video up. And lots of sirens. Anyways, glad that's done. Have a wonderful day. Wish you good health. And Happy New Year. It is the new year tomorrow, I think. Bye.